Okay, this project originates from the Arts and Activities magazine dated January 1992. It's an idea worth trying, and it was contributed by Len Mathis, who at that time was a teacher in El Monte, California. Now, obviously, this is an oldie, but a goodie, so I hope you enjoy. We're going to start out, and I do it a little bit differently than was highlighted in the article, but I think it'll work just as easily and hopefully suit your needs. First thing we're going to do is start with a triangle template, and I want you to put the longest side of the template towards your stomach if you're sitting at a table. And what we're going to do is we're going to create bubble letters, and I'm going to teach you an easy way to make bubble letters, because some people think that they're difficult to make. So my name is Rhonda, and so I'm going to mark out that I have 5 letters. And I know then that N is my middle letter. So I know I'm going to want to have my N somewhere in the middle of my triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in an N. And you can mix up uppercase, lowercase, you can do all lowercase, all uppercase, whatever you as the artist decide you want to do. You also want to make sure that your letter goes into the heavy black outline that I have here. So then I know that I need an O here, again going into the black, and an R. Now I could choose an uppercase or a lowercase R, and I'm going to go uppercase. And I think I'll just stick with all uppercase. So then I'm going to make my D here. Again, it goes into the black, and my A. Now I did that in marker so that it would show up better on the video, but I would suggest you do it in pencil, because in the end then you could erase those pencil lines. So now to turn these into bubble letters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I would use either a pencil again, so in case any mistakes that take place you can fix them. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to trace out around my letters, and to make it easier in the end we are going to paint. So my suggestion would be that you have your bubble letters be 1 pinky or 1 finger width thick. So now I can come in and do my O, and I'm going to make my O and my N touch. And notice now how my bubble letters are sort of going outside the triangle. That's perfectly okay. Remember, with letters like O's that have enclosed areas, you need to go around the inside of those also. And I have a little inside of my R, and my D looks like it's going to touch my N. And again, I need to do the inside of my D, and then I need to do my A, and the inside of my A. So now I have my bubble letters complete. The next thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to cut this out. Now if you drew your original letters in pencil, you could go ahead and erase those right now so you don't get confused about what you're going to be tracing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully cut just on the inside of the triangle. So I'm actually getting rid of all the black of that triangle. And this will make perfect sense in just a little bit when we get to the next step. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a template that I'm going to draw and trace and trace and trace. So I can get rid of my scraps. So now I have something that looks like this. Next step that you're going to do is you're going to take a 12 by 12 inch piece of heavy drawing paper, and we're going to fold it in half like a book, matching up our corners and our edges and creasing well, and then open that up. And I always like to fold it backwards so it lays kind of flat again. So then I turned my paper, so now my fold is going across, and I'm going to again fold it like a book, and I'm going to match up my corners, my sides, and I'm going to crease it, and I'm going to unfold it. You probably can't see on the video now, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold corner to corner. Again, matching up that point the sides and creasing it. And I'm going to open it up and fold it back the other way. And now I'm going to do the other corner to corner. So I'm going to make an X through the middle. So what I'm going to actually end up with is something that looks like a square pizza or a square pie that's been sliced. So I have 1 triangle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. If you bring your template back on, you'll notice then that it's pretty close to being exactly the same size as the triangle that we wrote your name in. The next thing that you're going to need then is some thin drafting tape and some carbon paper. And it's okay if it's been used because it will work perfect for what we need to do. First thing you're going to do, slide off your square paper, and you're going to put the carbon paper side up. Now I know that sounds weird, but just follow with me and you'll understand. Now, either with a pen or a pencil, what I want you to do is to just trace over the lines that are the outside lines of your bubble letter. You might get a little bit of black on the edge of your hand, but it'll be okay. A little black on the edge of your hand is better than having to redraw this each time by hand and getting it to match up perfectly. Okay, so now what you've done though is you've created a backward copy of your letters, and that's going to be important. The next thing you need to decide is the first letter or the last letter of my name going to be always in the center of my project. I'm going to put my R in the center, so I'm going to make a little dot or a little star or an arrow or something that reminds me that that always needs to be pointing to the center of my project, or things won't come out quite as right as we want them to, and you have to start over. So I'm going to line that up on the folds of that piece there, and I'm going to take just a small piece of the drafting tape and I'm going to put it along the bottom edge here, and then I'm going to slip. Now the carbon paper, the dark side, the carbon side is going to go down toward our white paper, and I'm going to slip that under there, and then I'm going to just kind of hold it in place, and I'm going to trace again on those lines that are my bubble letters. Now it'll take a couple of times before you kind of, now over the tape here you can kind of see the mark underneath, so just go ahead and go over that. And we'll just keep going. If you feel like you need to adjust your carbon paper a little bit, you can do that. Now, one thing that I always like to do is before I do too much, I can just slip that carbon paper out and I can kind of peek underneath. Oh, I forgot this line right here. I can see that. So now is the time to put that carbon paper back under there and to trace that line. Now let's take another peek. All right, I think that looks good. Now on this time, what we're going to do is we're going to just flip this over. And notice how then your letters match up. The bottom of the R matches up to the bottom of the R and on down the line. So what you're going to do is take your carbon paper, slip it underneath, black side down. All right. And hold it in place and begin tracing over your name that is now backwards. You want to be really careful that you're matching things up, because in the end, that's what's going to create our overall radial balance, kaleidoscope looking design. Now, I'm going to peek again. Looks like I got it all this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm very carefully going to remove the tape. And I'm going to set my template off to the side, and where the tape was, I kind of need to connect my letters. And you may need to connect letters in other places that might not have completely connected. As we get toward the outside edge of the paper, you can just go ahead and extend those lines so that they go to the edge of the paper. All right, now we're ready to tape it on again. Now, it would be very easy for me to just kind of start like this, but remember I said I made the dot to remind me that that always needs to go to the center. And it should match up your letters, and it should match up on your fold. So now see how these letters are connecting. Okay, that completes drawing it around all 8 sides. And now you can see that it is kind of hard to see that it is even a name anymore. It's more or less become a design. The R in the middle has created kind of this floral looking design. The O's maybe look like sunglasses when they're paired together. You get some zigzag things going on with the N and things like that. Now we're ready for the next step, which is going to be painting with tempera paint. Okay, now we're ready to paint. A couple painting tips first off. I like to recycle styrofoam egg cartons to keep tempera paint in. I also like to use a damp sponge that has had most of the water washed out of it. And then I like to use that to dry up my brushes after I rinse them in my water cup. Don't be afraid if your water gets dirty. Don't be afraid to stop, take the time out, and get clean water. Your painting will appreciate it. So now what we're going to do, we're going to start painting from the center out. And that's going to do a couple of things for us. First of all, we'll be able to not be dragging our arm across it. We'll be able to go every other area so we never have wet paint next to wet paint. And one more thing about paint brushes. You don't hold your pen or pencil out here when you're going to write or draw. Well, maybe you do, but you get better control if you're holding it close down by the tip. So the tip that I'd like to give you about paint brushes is that you don't want to hold your brush clear out here and paint like this, because you're not going to get nice smooth edges. What you want to do is you want to hold your brush down on the silver part, and you want to then, if you're painting in a small area, let your fingers and wrist do the work. So it goes something like this. I'm going to load up some pink paint to start, and that's the center part that I'm going to do. And I don't go too quickly. I go pretty slowly. And I'm going to just paint in. And if you feel more comfortable turning your painting to be able to get into a little area, feel free to do that. So now I've got that first little area painted, and I need to wash out my brush. And then I'm going to dry it off on that damp sponge. And I'm going to choose my next color. And that color is going to go, I'm not going to paint this area because that would be putting wet paint next to wet paint. So I'm going to skip this area for now. Then I'm going to do these areas all the same color. And I'm going to choose a turquoise color. Okay, got that one done. Rinsing my brush, drying it off. Now the next area I'm going to do is, again, I've skipped this area, so I'll do this area in between the R and the O. If you're doing a smaller area, you probably want to stick with a smaller brush. If you get into a little bit bigger area, you can always use a little bit bigger brush. Okay, so now that we've done one whole section, starting in the middle and working out, skipping every other section so that we aren't putting wet paint next to wet paint, we're ready to go back, since our paints are dry, to go back in and start in the middle section again. So I obviously do not want to choose pink, and I don't want to choose turquoise, and I don't want to choose green. I want to choose something different to contrast. So I'm going to pick yellow, and I'm going to start here, remembering brush technique. Always using our brush more like a pencil and holding it at the tip so we have good control. I'm going to choose pink, and again, I'm skipping an area because the green is already dry, the orange is already dry, and the blue is already dry. And I'm going to go ahead and add in pink. Okay, now that you have your painting is complete and it is all dry, the last step that we're going to do is we're going to use a Sharpie marker, a fine point Sharpie, and we're just going to draw in between our colors to kind of tidy up any edges. And in essence, it'll kind of make it look like a coloring book with the black edges. And again, you want to take your time. You want it to be nice and neat, because this is going to be your final product. Okay, now that I'm finished, I know it's my name, but it's really kind of hard to even distinguish what the letters are to make up my name in our radial balance design as a kaleidoscope. So it is important that I still, as the artist, sign my work. So I'm going to find somewhere in the lower right-hand side that I think would be appropriate for me to sign. And I'm going to then sign my work. And now my project is complete.